Well, hello, Facebook Live. It is so good to be here today on this gorgeous kind of rainy Tuesday here in New England, in New Hampshire. I'm so happy to see everybody. So let me know that you've arrived. If you want to say hi, you can say hello in the little chat box below. And I think our topic today is really, really good. What we're going to talk about today at lunchtime is what happens when you are nearing the completion of a creative project, or if you are at the end of the process of a creative project. So it's directly applicable to a lot of people I know out there in Facebook world that are in the creative world. It's a bumpy road to navigate this whole period of time that you have this gestation period of this thing that you're making. And there's a lot of emotions that go along with it, a lot of roadblocks that go along with it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Some things to maybe keep an eye out for as you're traveling through your creative process. And I'll give you some great tips as well that'll help you. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nanette Parat. I am first and foremost a jazz musician, a singer. I've been singing since I was teeny tiny, sung just about everything. And what I do is I'm also a yoga teacher, and I also work with different groups to help them channel and focus their creativity through arts integration and mindful leadership. And my website is nanetteparat.com, and I'll tell you about a resource that I put on there at the end of this video today. So let's get right into it. So you've created this thing, and you kind of are gearing up maybe towards the middle or kind of winding towards the end. Basically, you are out of the romance stage, right? You're out of that stage where you have had this brilliant idea and oh wow, everyone's gonna love your little creative baby and you can't wait to get it out there. So you start pulling those 12, 14-hour days creating this thing, whatever it is, and it's a big love affair, and you're in love with each other, and tickety, everything goes, and then all of a sudden, you kind of turn a corner. You turn that creative corner where this love affair ain't so fresh anymore. Because the reality of it coming to an end is approaching. And I came to this for two experiences that I had. One was when I was in Spain. I actually had the chance to see a very famous painting by Pablo Picasso called Guernica. It's a giant painting, and it's a very emotional, and it was a groundbreaking painting for many reasons, and you can look it up. It's fantastic story around this painting. And I've seen it in books for years, and I've always admired it in books, and I've never seen it live and in person. So when I was in Spain, I did my trek to the museum to see this painting that I've lived with probably since I was in my teens. And I went and I saw it, and it just blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind seeing it again live and in person. But there was one part of that experience that I didn't expect. You walk in the room, and of course it's filled with people seeing this famous painting, and when you turn away from it, because you just kind of have to look at it, turn away, walk away, and come back, you turn away and you look at the wall behind it, and there's a series of sketches that Picasso did preparing and planning out this particular piece. And there are these really great kind of rough sketches of the horse, and there's a person hanging out of a window, and so you see his process, but right there on the wall, how he worked it out. And I guarantee you that's a small part of what he did, but at least you get to see it. And then you turn back and you look at this painting in a whole different way. Just that moment of kind of stepping back from this overwhelming giant big thing, and then you look at it again and you see it in a completely different way, in a much more energized kind of way. So that's one of the things I think that when we are involved in our own our creative process, like I'm involved in this Mindflow app with the artist Sean Kramer, and I've been working on it probably for a year. Here comes Milo. Let me pet Milo, my dog. Hi, Milo. And you know, it's been a year plus that I've been working on this, and it's kind of coming to that end point. You know, Sean's getting the artwork done, I've got the audio done, and it's been a really nice time where I've written the stuff and I've recorded it to step back and kind of turn away and look at another wall behind me and then turn my attention back to it. It's a very refreshing feeling just to momentarily disconnect and then turn back and look at your project again. So that's a useful tool for some of you that are involved in this project and you're kind of getting back to the end. You step away from this thing, you reconnect to it when you turn back and look at it again, and you can see why you got excited about this project in the first place. You literally fall in love again. So that's one experience that I had with it separately. And then the second experience is with this Mindflow app. Hi, Melanie. Which it's an app that I'm making that is a meditation app. And so it's my voice basically, and they're short. They're like 3.5-minute meditations, affirmations, if you will. And then Sean is doing these incredible paintings, Sean Kramer, that will be on your phone. So you can meditate on his artwork while you're listening to my vocal meditation. That's basically what it is, and that'll be out in November. We're hoping to get it ready by then. So when you're involved in this process, you know, you have that moment where you have to disconnect and look at it again, but there's also days where you just kind of flatline on it, where you just wonder, or just even getting yourself to sit down and do it is really difficult. And here, one of the things when you run into that thing where you just can't get yourself to sit down at the desk and write, or in this case record, or in Pablo's case paint, my yoga teacher Barbara Banah gave me a fantastic tip. And are you ready? Here it is, the tip. Just show up. Roll out your yoga mat and just stand on it. And Barbara was right. If I just take that yoga mat and just roll it out there, and even if I just sit on the yoga mat, eventually I start to move a shoulder, I start to turn my head, I start to breathe a little deeper. It's the same thing when you're involved in the art of not only yoga, but the art of art. That just showing up and sitting at your creative space, and hopefully you've made yourself a creative space, that itself will help you jumpstart and get yourself out of this kind of, what, you know, either that or kind of, what am I doing with this thing? I have no idea. So just showing up to that. The other thing that's really helpful is having someone to keep you accountable. Hi, Carrie. Having someone to help keep you accountable. And for me, I'm lucky because I live with Sebastian Lockwood. He's a great storyteller, writer, poet, bard, and he is someone who's really fantastic, and we've learned how to communicate as a married couple and also as a creative couple, how to keep each other accountable for the different things that we're doing, because we're involved around each other all day. He works on one side of the house and I work on the other, and then we kind of pass in between, and we'll check up on each other and really give each other mindful suggestions and questions about how the process is going. So it's tough when it's your spouse. My parents did it in their restaurant. They managed to do that for many, many years, kind of held each other checking what's going on with this restaurant. But if you have someone like a mentor or a coach that can work as part of your process to keep you accountable for this project that you're doing, that's also really, really helpful. So then we get to kind of the messy parts. When Pablo Picasso painted Guernica, the guy's a genius, okay? Let's be honest. And if you haven't seen the painting, you got to go online and look at it and read about it. Someone like that has no fear. And there are some people engaged in the artistic process who have no fear of failure. They have no fear that when they produce this piece of art, that no one's gonna love their baby. They're not afraid of that. That they just go on this channel and create this piece with the utmost confidence that it has to be created and it has to be done. Well, most of us, mortal people, aren't quite like that. There is that fear that kind of, you know, it's a fear that, no, again, no one's going to like your baby. So you've fallen in love with this thing, you've sweated over this thing, and you get these little panic attacks in the middle of the night where you wake up and you wonder if anyone's going to buy your app, right? Or you wonder if anyone is going to buy your Beowulf translation that you've worked on for whatever, 3 years. So there is that fear. And a lot of times what happens with that fear is that people get stuck in the dreaded perfectionist syndrome, where it has to be a work of genius. That if it's not a work of genius in your mind, then it's never going to be done. It's never going to be done. So part of what you invest in when you invest in the creative process is to know that there is a certain point when the piece has to be released, when the cake is done, so to speak. You've put all the pieces together, it's turned into a goopy mess, you put it in the oven, and there's time when this cake is ready to go out. And all your job is just to put the icing on it and let it go. What is troublesome is when you get caught up in making it perfect. You're welcome. I'm glad to show up. So that dreaded perfectionism holds people back, and I hear it all the time. The person that says, I'm such a perfectionist, and they trumpet it like it's the best thing in the world. And I just sit there and think, well, that's a bunch of torture. And what are you avoiding? That's my thought. I'm not saying that you just make something and you throw it out, and if the hits the wall, then great. I'm saying that there is that crutch that happens with using I am such a perfectionist. So if you catch yourself saying that, beware, because that could possibly be something that is slamming on the brakes to you completing the project. Because, you know, how many people do you know that have the that thing, it's called like the half-finished syndrome? You have this thing, it could even be like a house project, you know, I don't know if those of you guys do that, where you have this house project, you know, and you go into the house project and you do it, but you don't finish it. You get stuck halfway, either because it's not working out the way you think it should be, it doesn't look as genius as you think it should be, or you get distracted, right? Like the dreaded squirrel, rabbit, right? So you never get the project done, the dreaded half-finished syndrome, where you get distracted, whether it's in research, you know, or working on the tools that you need to get it done, or working on your technique. You get bogged up in that kind of just half done. Chances are at this point, if you're almost at the end of the project, you have done all your research. You should have. You have all the tools, confidence included, knowing that this is something that's going to benefit the greater good, and you've worked on your technique, hopefully, for quite a while. So that whether it's building an app, whether it's making a painting, you've gone to painting school, you've gone to photography school, you've done the work. So don't let that kind of getting done, I gotta get more technique, I gotta do more research, stop you from turning that final corner to create something that is inherently, we hope, for the greater good. The other thing that I notice that happens is that beginner creative people don't connect to the idea that it takes a long, long, long time to create something. So there's this kind of impatience where they want this thing now. They like that, I want it now, that kind of a thing. Where there has to be an understanding that this creative process is something that takes a while. And that's applicable too in the business world, where someone will hire a creative person to come in, or a mindfulness coach to come in, with the expectation or the thought that it can, well, we've done 3 mindful leadership workshops and everyone should be mindful now. Jon Kabat-Zinn, one of the facilitators of bringing mindfulness into the workplace here in the United States, says that mindfulness and meditation is one of the hardest things that a human can do. It takes a long, long time. And I will say, Jon Kabat-Zinn, creativity and art is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, and it takes a long, long time. So when you have this kind of individual that is impatient for the completion of this thing and they can't understand why it's not done like yesterday, well, welcome to the real world. That's the way it is. It's not done overnight. There are those moments where you create something and it's just you're channeling whoever it is and boom, it's done. But those are the moments that are few and far between. And those are moments that you are not going to bank your creative entrepreneurial career on, because when they do arrive, celebrate them. But just be aware that you will probably not have them that often. It's enjoying the process and watching this particular thing grow and go out into the world again for the greater good. The kind of the results of all of this and the prize at the end of the journey is that you really get a feeling of satisfaction, that you have created a work of art. You have joy and satisfaction in the knowledge that you have created this work of art. And you have an incredible pride in the fact that you actually did it. So there is that incredible sensation of that high of seeing your painting hanging in a gallery, or hearing your audio meditations on an app. You know, those kind of things, that's like post-launch, like celebrate, like here we go, you did it, pat on the back, woohoo, play all your pumped up music. And that's the glorious feeling of it. That's the absolutely beautiful feeling of it. And then the awareness too that along with all that joy and that pride and that satisfaction, there is also kind of like a postpartum depression that kicks in, because you're wondering kind of, what's next? What do I do now? And I had this talk with Chef Louie where I was on this kind of roll doing this particular project all through the end of the winter and into the spring, and I was just going, and finally it was done. The baby had been birthed and off it went. And I was talking on the phone to my dad and I was like, I'm kind of sad, you know, I'm kind of bored. Like, I'm kind of sad. And it was very interesting to talk about that and understand that that is also part of the creative turning the corner and letting your baby go out into the world turn that you have to take. So embrace the joy, but also embrace the kind of the little sadness of letting your little bird go. But understand that you have created something again that is really for the greater good. So I hope this helps you. It's a lot of things that I loaded in there, but there's a lot of you that have been messaging me that are involved in these projets, including myself, that are rounding the bend towards the end, the bending end. And these are some things that'll hopefully help you. I have added something onto my website. If you go onto NanettePerrott.com and you go up onto the resources tab, I put a TED Talk from 2016, a gentleman called Adam Grant. And he talks about the benefit of being a moderate procrastinator. So, because part of what I was thinking about when I was going through what are some of the roadblocks of finishing a creative project, that procrastination was one of them. So, if you go onto my website, click on the resources tab, and then just check out the TED Talk. He's great, and he's funny, and it's a really interesting angle on that. And check out the other resources I have on there. I'm adding to that page all the time. All right, gang. Go have your lunch. I gotta go eat. All right. I'm so glad to see everybody. I think I'll see you next week. I should be back. Lots of love, peace, love, and happiness. Be kind to each other. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.